Welcome to an often overlooked yet critical epicenter of crypto and blockchain innovation. This is where builders have come to from far and wide to chill, chat and code the future of finance. But beyond the competitive zeal of ETHDenver's community of doers, we're here today because crypto narratives are increasingly difficult to keep track of. To really understand the future of crypto, of regulation, of AI and blockchains working together, we simply had to cut through the noise. So we spoke to the organizers, the community, the founders, and the builders themselves about all things crypto. This is ETHDenver 2024, and we're here to measure the pulse of crypto from deep within the vibrant city of Denver, Colorado.
Colorado is a perfect social political vibe for Web3. And there's just really natural enthusiasm for something new. So when people come here, it fits the permissionless, open, transparent sort of community culture that Web3 promotes in a very legitimate geocentric way.
The one thing that strikes me as the through line in ETHDenver's evolution has been the founder, John Power. Just the scale of his ambition to build a great community in Colorado and bring talent and innovation to Colorado.
When the meetup culture started spawning for crypto, we went from, call it, a couple dozen people in a basement of a dive bar to renting out an entire floor of some tech company, where we're hosting 400 to 500 people with a wait list.
And John was like, no, we need to have 20,000 people. John's connected the dots and he's followed through on execution.
So the way that I look at my responsibility for ETHDenver is I put up a big tent and a blank canvas, and we just say, you do you, right?
Out here. Little shot, baby. ETHDenver. Come on.
Very quickly you realize that this isn't a crypto conference like the others. The people here seem hungry for innovation and progress. So what exactly makes ETHDenver unique?
However you can get yourself to Denver, whether you're going to apply for a scholarship and we'll help you get here, or you can just figure out how to get here, it's free to come, and then you come and create, build, express in a way that's meaningful for you.
ETHDenver has been a big vibe as per usual. This year I came because I'm the president of the Oxford University Blockchain Society, and I brought some members over from the UK, and we're hacking, but we're also networking, we're vibing, so really happy to be here.
But there's a lot of people in town, and the vibe, the whole city's vibe just shifts. You can feel it. Just the exuberance, the enthusiasm for innovation, for idea sharing, for these creative collisions it's unlike anything I've ever witnessed.
What I really like about ETHDenver is the sort of the positive energy in the room. There's this almost this kind of, you can feel sort of the collaborative energy.
Like just watching all these projects happen and how passionate the people are, that's what brings us here.
It's Denver in winter a bit kind of harsh, circuit kind of situation, and sharing this situation is kind of make some bond, I guess.
We're the only event in the world whose main event is the Build-a-thon.
I think really cool experience in 2019. Actually, I was judging the team that became Optimism.
Last year when I was competing in the hackathon, I just made a team at the hackathon and met some people here. And
so many different people from different countries, different gender, different experience level, different domains. So the kind of diversity I see here, that is phenomenal here.
So I got here a week ago, and I've been working on the project and meeting people, hanging out with everyone. Around 10 hours every day in this hall.
So I worked 94 hours. I'm feeling great, it feels amazing. I feel like I got accomplished a lot.
I think the thing I love about mentoring is that you get a glimpse of all the creativity that people bring to these build-a-thons.
The fact that we focus on the doing and the building over the talking is largely what really makes us so productive. You're not just consuming, listening, you're actually contributing
There's a lot of conferences out there that, charge the attendees a lot of money, and ETHDenver has always taken a different attitude about that, and I really appreciate that energy that creates. So
I don't know, there's something about ETHDenver that's like, it's considered one of the biggest events, and now I see why.
Be aware of the creative collisions that can happen, be aware of the opportunities that are there, and embrace them. But then, other than that, it's up to you.
ETHDenver sets itself apart with its flagship event, the Buildathon, where developers from all over the world converge to code their ideas into reality. From here on the ground, it seems they're shaping the future of crypto one line of code at a time. Now, let's hear about crypto's top narratives and what the future really holds.
There are the narratives that I personally find valuable, and there are the ones that clearly everyone's talking about. Are AIs, GameFi's, LSTs, restaking, and RWA is also a very hot topic. L2's Bitcoin ecosystem, whether that can actually grow into a smart contract ecosystem, and modularity. There are too many narratives out there.
The other thing that I'm super excited about is gaming. I think for the first time we're abstracting a lot of the friction around crypto away from that so that we can really focus on still creating amazing gameplay loops whilst also infusing the benefits of Web3.
We grew up playing things like RuneScape or World of Warcraft. You already understand this concept of going and grinding a game, farming things, and being able to take your assets, whether that be a character or whatever it is, and be able to resell that on a secondary market. So it's already ingrained in people's minds. They just don't quite see or understand how Web3 enables that further.
We are bringing the game to the masses through easy account abstraction, making it to where it's frictionless, fun, and free. We're trying to change the narrative for people to actually understand how to own their own assets and what they can do with those assets. Interoperability cases with other games, interoperability cases with other chains.
But then when you start to get into the nuance of, okay, how do you deliver a Web3 game at scale with the level of performance that delivers the content to the blockchain, that it actually doesn't, result in an experience of like glitchiness and lagginess and so forth that you would experience if you tried to play Halo on a dial-up modem. That's the problem that we have effectively solved in terms of that core piece of infrastructure.
Definitely excited with all the gamifying going on in the space as well, and really interesting to see where that goes from here.
The gamification narrative seems to be pulling new users into the space, but another hot narrative at the moment is artificial intelligence. So, what does the intersection of AI and blockchains look like?
I think the next billion users will be AI agents. And I know that sounds sci-fi or sounds like a hot take. The next billion users will not be humans signing transactions in MetaMask, but the next billion over the next 2 to 3 years will actually be autonomous agents transacting primarily on chain. They're gonna need to procure resources, compute resources, storage resources, hosting platforms. So blockchain will find even more product market fit as just a place where AI transacts.
I think we win when we have products that have an inherent value without having to explain decentralization. I think having to rely on the ideas of decentralization to make the product good, as opposed to have a good product because of decentralization, if implemented well, blockchain can make superior artificial intelligence. And so that has the lead for the product the right way around.
The keynote talk was about how AI needs crypto and how crypto doesn't need AI. I know it's as crazy as it sounds, but the talk was around an article published on Semaphore. They talked about the GPU shortage and how blockchain was the unlikely hero to solving this shortage problem.
Intellectually speaking, I'm struggling with the fact that AI intrinsically is highly centralized in its nature.
Because when you're using an AI model, you are trusting someone else. You can reduce that need for trust by essentially spreading the production of AI models out across many participants.
We store all kinds of information. We've been storing AI data of all types for several years, but it's been great to help people understand how storing on a decentralized storage network, whether it's us or someone else, is really helpful when we think about trust in AI and having the ability to prove and verify where data is coming from.
Blockchain and crypto provide provable scarcity. And so the two really need each other, and that's something I'm really tracking this cycle, and something that we're really working on at Story Protocol as a programmable IP layer to partner with both Web2 and crypto native AI apps to be their IP layer and to help creators capture the value of their works.
Very interesting use cases for crypto and AI is provenance. It's very hard to know what is real and what's not. So using a mechanism where we can track the attestation all the way from the creation of the image to publication, I think we have a great shot at solving the fake news problem.
If the next billion users will be AI agents transacting on chain, where will that liquidity come from and how will this impact the industry?
The ETF, we're all talking about that, right? That is our Trojan horse. It's hard to kill something that's now in people's pension funds, right? So
kind of deep, inconsistent liquidity that's coming in and what's happening with the ETFs and with more institutional involvements and what that's going to mean in terms of making this bull market potentially more stable as well, right? In terms of when we get off of it, is, you know, which hopefully never happens, but one day.
Now that the Bitcoin ETP has been approved, a lot of people have asked me about whether and when there'll be an approval of an ETH ETP. And in fact, we've gotten some applications in already, which is why I can't talk specifically about it. But what I can say is that we look at the facts and circumstances, obviously, and the reasoning that we apply should be consistent across different types of exchange-traded products. Again, that doesn't mean that that you can read anything into my answer in terms of approval one way or the other. In fact, I would commend people to take a look at the statements that were put out by two of my colleagues. I also put out a statement when we approved the Bitcoin exchange-traded product, but two of my colleagues put out statements that I think gave a window into their thinking on these issues, and I think that would be helpful for people to read to get some context.
I think we're going to learn a lot from an ETF if it happens. Folks are saying it's going to happen. I sure hope so. It'll mean that ETH, like Bitcoin, has reached regulatory escape velocity.
Regulation in the US has long been a contentious topic. So how do you see the current regulatory landscape in the US and what changes might be needed going forward?
The regulatory structure in the United States is a very complicated one, which is why a lot of people ask, what is the role of Congress in this very complicated regulatory landscape and providing some clarity for crypto? But even writing that legislation is a big job. You've seen some quite comprehensive efforts coming both from the House and the Senate.
I think a lot of financial regulation is actually designed to prevent some of the outcomes that are impossible by construction with crypto. So I think that means that the community is actually doing a lot of things right already, and we should just keep that in mind when it comes to complying with regulation.
The biggest challenge today is there aren't enough technologists and entrepreneurs that come from the crypto space that are today working in policymaking roles.
Lack of technical understanding on the regulator side, because the biggest benefit that this technology brings is that all of the asset issuance, transactions, everything is on chain, everything is transparent. And from my perspective, like things like SEC should actually require all the assets to register on chain, including like securities should be registered on chain.
All the proofs, all the sort of studies from things like Chainalysis and all that kind of stuff showed that really people don't use crypto for money laundering substantially because it's incredibly transparent. You can track every transaction from the day dot. That is much harder to do within a closed banking system.
In fact, the best transaction monitoring for traditional financial players can be built in blockchain. It is the most traceable mechanism out there.
Privacy, in my opinion, is the key to solving all of crypto's regulatory issues because it enables better security guarantees for users than the existing traditional financial world. That we can create a regime where there's less fraud, there's less criminality. And I don't think that's very hard to achieve given the relatively high rates of fraud and criminality in our existing financial network. But I think it's important that we, as a first step, establish moral legitimacy and show that we can do better than the existing world.
How is regulation generally impacting progress and innovation?
The United States has always been a leader in innovation, and the regulatory landscape now is not conducive to supporting that innovation.
And we are an American company. We're based in the US. We're primarily based in San Francisco. and we're not going anywhere, right? So for us, it's very, very important that we can stay in US and build from US.
And I think the reality on the ground today is that when you talk to builders, more often than not, they're spending more money on lawyers and figuring out the regulatory environment than they are on building their product. And if we think that on-chain is the major next technical platform that's going to transform the world, and that's the situation we are putting the best entrepreneurs in the United States in, we're doing something totally wrong.
Yeah, I think regulation framework is very different in each countries. In some countries think Web3 is a huge opportunity, and some countries are not. And when it comes to Japan, because I'm originally from Japan, Japan think Web3 as a very good opportunity. Because when it comes to Web2, we don't have any global Web2 company. So the government and the politicians think Web3 is the next opportunity we should not miss.
We've noticed that in South Korea, the regulators have been a bit more open about working with industry to establish sort of guidelines. And because we are one of the largest blockchain security companies in Korea, we've been working with regulators there to craft those guidelines in a way that's good for an industry.
You know, you see Hong Kong starting to kind of open up their regulatory borders for Web3 projects as well. I think there's also a lot of government-sponsored initiatives there.
Having great regulation can bring industry to your country, it can create jobs, all of these things. And I think that the regulators who are forward thinking about it are going to have a real advantage here.
Sometimes people look first to a government regulatory solution, and I always say, you ought to look to yourselves, right? You should look to yourselves for what you can do on the self-regulatory front. I think that can be a very valuable piece of the answer to some of the real problems that we've seen in the industry. You can figure out for yourselves what some of the markers of good conduct are and what some of the markers of bad conduct are, and you can help hold each other accountable.
And I think every builder has, I personally think, an obligation to think about, yes, how can the product that you're building be used, right? And so there's an element of self-regulation that's happened in the space, which I think is maybe even underreported.
What does the future of crypto and blockchain regulation look like?
Whether the regulation is tough or lax, the most important thing is clarity.
That I think really we have a responsibility to help educate those regulators about what we're doing. And I think that's ultimately going to bring everybody to the table.
There's a great project called Tech Congress that we've supported to really bring this exact kind of researcher or technologist to work in Capitol Hill and to really translate language.
I think what's shifted in sort of the regulatory conversation overall is that we have companies like Coinbase that has made it like a really core part of its mission to really engage, sort of the regulatory authorities, especially in the US, but also on a global basis.
And so that's what Coinbase has been doing for the last decade. And we're doing that in collaboration with policymakers, in Congress. We're doing that in the courts where necessary to ensure that we're standing up for freedom in America. And I think it's having a positive impact. And so if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have said, I don't know where this is going to end up. If you ask me today, I'm very positive.
Coinbase submitted a petition for rulemaking where they laid out a number of questions that we could be thinking about, and I think that others in the space should be thinking about what the questions are that need to be answered, where are the pain points coming when the crypto industry meets the traditional financial regulatory framework, and what are potential ways to address the regulatory objectives while also getting past those pain points. That's something that's very productive, and I think we are seeing organizations out there who are working on these issues.
For example, Giddy's based in Utah. We recently spoke at the Utah Senate in favor of a bill that would basically afford the same protections to a private key that are currently given to, say, a laptop password.
I would encourage everybody to be involved in Blockchain Association and in the work that they're doing, which I think is big.
But I think what we all need to work for is a country that welcomes people who are willing to make that effort to try. So as we're thinking about building a regulatory framework, let's build one that really embraces that ethos of people trying things. That's what will, I think, move us forward. We have to be willing to embrace that risk-taking, that innovation, that free-thinking spirit.
So I'm not going anywhere. I'm building a crypto company right here in America.
I'm gonna sound like a total nerd, but I like rules where it's like, if you think about basketball even, it's like, okay, cool. There are the boundaries, there are the nets, you can't hit anyone, go play.
The idea that crypto is dying in the US couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, regulation is thought of as a slight barrier to innovation, but what we've actually discovered is that the US has a say in shaping crypto. So what do the experts think about the future of adoption?
To make long story short, it's all about mass adoption. So far, we have been using crypto and a blockchain made by geek and for the geek.
Today, the UX of onboarding into crypto is extremely painful. Like downloading a Chrome extension wallet, or even if you start it on your computer, but then you like move to your phone, you have to copy your private key to this new device. And it's like, we're just like teaching users terrible security practices, and we're never gonna onboard like 1 billion people onto this.
Right now, UI, UX in crypto is terrible. You have to basically have a PhD in DGen to figure it out. There's no amount of education that I can give an entire crowd of even crypto curious people that is gonna get them to like pay attention to all the little nuances and private key management and all this stuff. They're not gonna do it. So it's, how do we bridge that gap?
All of us are frustrated with passwords, and we've been frustrated with passwords for 20 years. And I think one of the kind of Trojan horses of crypto is that we're gonna bring everyone on chain, and immediately they're gonna have an identity that just works everywhere. And it's gonna help them use all of the services that they need on chain without having to create new passwords. The crypto experience for wallets hasn't been perfect, but there's a lot that's been great. And what we're gonna see with smart wallets and account abstraction is we're gonna take the great parts of that and we're gonna make them 10x better, and we're going to bring about a change in the way people experience the internet that is an order of magnitude better than anything anyone's ever had to deal with passwords and the Web 2 authentication systems that have existed.
Today, we're starting to see solutions like account abstraction be able to allow people to use Web3 products without ever interacting with signing transactions or figuring out how to manage wallets.
A very likely possibility that end users will never actually realize that they're interacting with crypto unless they decide to dig in deeper. And I actually think that that's a feature, not a bug. I think there's an idea of like progressive crypto pilling or progressive onboarding, where crypto can become progressively more apparent to users only if they so choose over time.
To onboard video of the users, we should leverage existing Web 2 users instead of the Web 3 people. So that direction is we goes to the existing market, not existing market comes to us.
Over last year, we've partnered with Sweatcoin, Cosmos, PlayEmber, and like a few others who are existing user bases in Web 2. They have high retention, they're already interacting with the apps, and there's some economy happening already there. And they can integrate now this chain abstracted stack to really onboard their users into Web3 without those users really needing to understand kind of wallets and addresses and all the things.
You have businesses like Blackbird who are bringing small businesses, restaurants, hundreds of them all around the country on chain. They're not doing that because it's like a shiny crypto thing. They're doing it because it improves their margins, it helps them retain their customers, and it makes their business work better.
We've been seeing it in our ecosystem with, for example, even big companies like Opera coming in and saying, hey, we want to give people access to this new digital economy, and building a wallet called MiniPay into their mini browser, which has 100 million users in Africa alone, right? So there's actually like billion users. Like, it seems crazy from maybe today's perspective, but now with sort of the distribution that some of the bigger companies are bringing to Web3, it does feel possible, this cycle.
So essentially what we're doing at D3 is very simply operating kind of a next generation domain marketplace for new extensions, people to identify with a lot of these Web3 projects. And as a real internet registry, we're actually partnering with a lot of the domain channel that accesses 5 billion internet users every day so that they can get exposure to these new assets, right?
How DeFi is moving from application to infrastructure. And I'm pretty excited about it because it really is a truly scalable, secure, and efficient way to go after TradFi. So the natural path is, hey, let's build financial infrastructure for crypto native people and, DeFi dead chance. That's, step one, bootstrapping. Step two is like, okay, let's go for more crypto casual users like centralized exchange, DeFi, and let's, have a Web 2-ish experience to be able to interact with DeFi, in a more and more crypto abstracted way. The third step is obviously fintechs, right? If you look at all those fintech companies, they have distribution, right? And so at some point, you'll see traditional finance players starting to think, hey, as network effects aggregate into open networks, well, some of those players are going to want to take advantage of this, and they're going to break the cartel. And so one by one, they will make the switch until everybody, happen to live on one, trustless, efficient infrastructure on permissionless blockchains, obviously.
We got a seed fund from Sony, and we created a joint venture. We are going to create a blockchain together because they believe, and we believe, that the blockchain is going to be a fundamental protocol for the next internet.
Then it's just a race for the winners. And then once we get the winners, then it's just scaling and adoption. And we can see how these adoption curves go historically with many things. It'll be slow and steady, and then all at once.
Clearly, the crypto community here is hard at work to ensure that we can build better products to onboard the next billion users. But the question is, what is the point? What is the purpose that drives it all?
Why we do crypto, right? Like, we're doing crypto because we want open systems. We want transparency, we want sovereignty, we want liberty, right? We are doing this because the infrastructure that we all rely on is increasingly getting concentrated and increasingly getting back to this feudalistic world that we all try to escape.
But most people don't realize how fragile it is. They don't realize how most of the data is stored in the hands of 4 companies that own most of our data. And so I think a lot of people in the blockchain and crypto movement think we can do better. And they really think the internet was built to be a really peer-to-peer system where it can be backed up and upkept by a number of different users and upkeeping different nodes.
We should work on Web3 and crypto and the blockchain for social good rather than the individual gain. The mindset is really important right now, and we have to prove ourselves to deliver the value, the fundamental value of the Web3 to the mass who do not care about Web3.
The goal of DeFi has been democratization, putting everything on the same stage, everyone playing by the same rules. It's the ability to use transparent systems which are not going to play against you, they're going to work for you. That's how DeFi works.
So we want to make it so efficient that an individual borrower can have the same access to capital at the same price as Coca-Cola or Ford or these major institutions. And that would be impossible without blockchain. We want lenders and borrowers to be able to connect on the individual level and transact so efficiently because they can.
In the case of some of the products we're now seeing, there's hundreds of thousands of millions to millions of people starting to use these products, and it's having a real impact in terms of economic participation. And I think really the big job that we as an industry have is to do a better job in sharing those stories. Like, look up sometimes from the work we're doing and step out of our bubble, right? And just tell more of these stories.
I'm excited about the meme of impact equals profit. My dream is for the next crop of crypto holders to come into the space by doing impactful things in their local community and then receiving capital via Gitcoin 2.0 or other tools similar to Gitcoin 2.0. I think that we can channel a lot of the degen energy towards regen energy when the incentives are aligned there, when we achieve impact equals profit. And the real end game here is upgrading democracy for the 21st century, a digital democratic experience that feels less like going to the DMV's website and feels more like using a consumer grade crypto or a consumer grade app. And the opportunity here is just massive because we're in a world in which there's crises happening everywhere, from wildfires to climate change to biodiversity collapse, and we need collective action in order to solve those things. And our legacy institutions do not seem to be equipped to meet those challenges. And so if we have a network-based way of doing collective action, of doing capital allocation at scale, I think that we can start to summon network states that are gonna help us meet humanity's greatest challenges.
That sort of use use case and that sort of utility for everyday people, everyday businesses, whether it's in the United States or beyond, that's going to be the thing that sustains us. It's going to be the thing that takes crypto out of this kind of narrative, speculative, hype cycle driven phenomenon and cements it as a critical piece of infrastructure which changes the world over the next decade.
Haha.